25 minutes past 8. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We turn our attention now to the National Conference. We're joined by Professor Joseph Abugu, who is a lecturer in the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. Thank you for coming on this morning, Prof.
Thank you.
Well, interestingly, this conference is started, but yes, this talk about whether or not there should be a referendum, we'll come to that, but give us your impression so far from what you heard about this conference.
First, it is a good thing that this conference has come to bear. It has been a subject of national discourse, even under the Obasanjo administration. And the issue was whether we should have a national conference, whether it should be sovereign. But in all of this, something was certain. The need has always been there for the units, whether states or whether ethnic nationalities, to come to discuss the Nigerian nation. The discontent is there. You can feel it from the east, you can feel it from the west, you can feel it from the north, and you can hear it from the south. And when you have a country where constituent units are beginning to air dissatisfaction, then there is need for everyone to come together to talk about the way forward. After all, the essence of Nigeria as a nation is to cater for the well-being of all the constituent units, of all citizens. If there's discontent, then we must discuss. Thank God this administration has found it worthy to convene this conference. So discuss, we must discuss. And I'm happy that we've gotten to this stage where all the constituent units, whether you call them ethnic nationalities, whether you call them states or local governments, some form of representation has to be devised. However imperfect it is, the national conference has been constituted, and we are.
And you're not disturbed that in the first week of the conference, they had issues of agreement, seating arrangements? You're not bothered?
No, it is expected. It is expected. The whole essence is to bring all grievances, so to say, on the table and talk about them. And then in the process of doing that, necessarily the issue of, what should be the sitting order, what should be the procedure, what are going to be the items on the agenda, all of these have to be discussed. So I haven't seen anything unexpected in these few days of the
Well, you said it's important that we discuss, but if you were there and you had the opportunity of being part of that particular, should I say, constituents now, what would form your own discussion in order of importance for you as a Nigerian?
As a Nigerian, the first thing that must be addressed is the structure of the government of this country. What we have presently is defective in certain fundamental respects. Pre-independence, when the regions and their political leaders sat at table with our colonial masters to fashion a way out, they looked at all the various options and felt a government with some center and regional representation, regional assemblies, was the best thing for this country. To me, the 1963 Constitution represents the very beginning, the ideal with which the founding fathers of this nation wanted all the federating units to be constituted into a nation. And then came military intervention. And with military intervention, considering the military structure of governance, we went on a unitary path. And that has continued even into the Third Republic and the Fourth Republic. The structure is still unitary. We call ourselves a federal system of government, but what we're actually practicing is a unitary system of government. In 1963, the exclusive legislative list had only about 46 items. In 1999, we have 66. Take 46 under a military government with a unitary structure, command structure. Then we've come into a democratic system of government, and the center has worked stronger and stronger than even under a military regime. Yet we say we practice federalism. So the structure is one key issue that must be addressed.
Is that structure entirely dependent on what the law says or the way we are practicing it? Because some say even the federating system that we have stipulated in our laws is not practiced as stipulated.
Yes, to some extent that may be right. But let's not forget that we have a constitution. And that constitution defines the powers of the federal government vis-a-vis the state governments. If that constitution has arrogated so much power to the center, however you practice it, there can be no devolution. So we must come back to that constitution, which is the essence, one of the essence of this conference, to look at that structure. To what extent should we devolve and reduce the powers of the federal government? To what extent should we grant some modicum of independence, autonomy to the constituent states? Federalism is all about a system of coordinated programs between the states and the federal government. So it's actually the issue of power sharing. It is when we have determined the structure and the way power is allocated between the center and the states, practice will build up. There's no constitution that will be able to delineate and spell out every detail of what, the challenges that any government will face at any point in time. But over time, conventions will arise, practices will become codified, and then we now say, oh, this is the way we do it. And this is what it should be.
You said, look, we needed to talk, but the reason why we're talking, people also need to be heard.
Yes.
Now, the thing about that is this. At the end of the day, that controversy about what becomes of the outcome. Because after all the talk, they need to walk that talk. What do you suggest be done with the outcome or recommendations of this conference? Referendum or National Assembly?
You see, some people have jumped and have gone to court to challenge the constitutionality of this conference.
Yeah.
But my take on it is very simple. If you and I can sit on Channels Television and discuss the propriety or otherwise of the present system of government, if we can sit down and discuss whether the present system of government is efficient or whether it is serving the need of the generality of Nigerians, if the PDP, as a political party, can come together and also discuss the way forward, what is good for the masses of this country, and then various associations, clubs, and others can come together and do the same thing. Last year, there was some form of a national discourse by, it wasn't really an adequate thing. The elders, I can't remember the exact name, under which they came together and produced a draft constitution. All of this are part and parcel of the exercise of the constitutional right to freedom of speech and expression and association. So on that score alone, a national conference, whether convened as it is now by government, or whether it is just some sectional interests that have come together to put, to arrange a national discourse, as far as I'm concerned, to that extent, it is constitutional. But right to your question, the issue of the outcome, that is where the issue of legality or otherwise will come in. There are two ways to go about it. The present constitution provides a mechanism for its own amendment. Whether an amendment can be expanded by way of definition to include a substitution is a legal issue. Because at the end of the day, this conference will come out with a draft constitution. Whether you can take it to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly can invoke the clause on amendment of the Constitution, take it around all the 36 state houses of assembly and get a two-third majority sanction from all of them, and then bring it to the floor of the National Assembly, you still have the issue of whether the amendment contemplated under the Constitution can be expanded to be and interpreted to mean substitution. Because what you'll be having, it will be a new constitution that will supplant the existing constitution. So that is one issue. The other issue is, all right, should there be a referendum? Again, the constitution itself, the present constitution, does not make provision for a referendum. Okay. So for those questioning the legality of the outcome, how it will be utilized, even the referendum issue also has its own legal contra-arguments. Because the Constitution, because when you say referendum, what will be the basis of the referendum? What is the enabling law? Will it be an act of the National Assembly? If it's an act of the National Assembly, then that act will then be permitting a referendum that will supplant the Constitution itself. Okay, and a mere act of the National Assembly without the consent of the two-thirds of the houses of assembly of the state will not amend the Constitution. So how can a mere referendum clause in the Constitution authorize a referendum that will then provide the basis for the supplantation of the Constitution? These are legal issues.
So what options do we have?
Well, at the end of the day, power belongs to the people. The people of this country ultimately will have to decide where we go from there. How that will work out, I cannot exactly pontificate about at this moment. But either way, there are legal hurdles. But where there is a will, there will be a way.